What would you do if your house was haunted? But that's not all. The ghost who haunts your house also loves what you love the most. And then we take a look at the story of a young man whose home is currently under siege by a demon. The question is, has the demon already found a way inside his soul? Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. And I hope you guys had an awesome weekend too. I did. I saw an amazing movie this weekend that I'll tell you about in a bit during our Dead Rabbit Radio Recommend segment. But first off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, clinking and clanking the entire way in. Everyone give it up for one of our newest Patreon supporters, Machinist 717679. Like, he's not a machine. He's a machinist. He works on machines. Actually, isn't that a mechanic? Isn't a machinist the guy who, like, smooths out metal? Either way, machinist, you are our captain, our pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the Patreon or the merch store or anything like that, totally fine, it really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Oh, and some quick updates here. Speaking of Patreon, we are going to do another Patreon movie night September 12th. September 12th, we're going to have a movie night for the Patreon members. But the way that it works is you don't have to be a paid Patreon member to join us. We do have a free tier, which I see a lot of you guys have signed up for. That's really, really awesome. So if you want to join us, we watch a bunch of short horror films. We watch a bunch of short films, so you can jump in and out. You don't have to stay there for the whole 2 hours, but we'd love to have you. So if you want to join us for the movie night, September 12th, join our Patreon, and you'll get all of the updates and the links for that. The next thing I wanted to talk about was, after many, many, many requests over the years, there is now, in the show notes of every episode, a link to a letterboxed list that has every Dead Rabbit Radio recommends that I've done in the past. Excluding the books and one or two YouTube videos weren't listed on there. All the movies I've recommended in the past via Dead Rabbit Radio Recommends is now in the show notes, and there is a list for that. So if you're looking for something to watch, the list will be in the links. Okay, let's go ahead and get this party started. Machinist 717679, let's go ahead and start you off in the, what's the most machine-like vehicle we have? What's the one that needs the most, obviously. The one that needs most repairs is the Jason Jalopy. Everyone climb on board as the machinist is slowly repairing this. He goes, I'm not a mechanic. He's all smoothing it down. We're just rolling in a big, shiny ball right now. Machinists, go ahead and fire up the Jason Jalopy as we leave behind Dead Rabbit Radio Command and drive us all the way out to Anywhere, USA. A nice leisurely drive all the way out to Anywhere, USA. We're about to meet a young man. We don't have his real name. We don't have a location. This is a very short story, but I have a lot to say about it. So we pull up outside this guy. You're like, damn it, those are always the worst. That's where Jason tells a 2-second horror story, and then he's like, let me pontificate on this one word that was used. I'm not going to go on that long about it, but we pull up to this dude's house. We're going to call him Billy. And Billy loves to smoke weed. He's got to have the ganja. He's delirious over the doobie. And so he's sitting back, rolling himself a fat joint, and he's like, yes, my favorite hobby. He's talking to himself because the marijuana psychosis is taking over. Oh, yes, after I stabbed my neighbors in the eyeballs, all of them, I live in a cul-de-sac. They're all blind now. One joint for me. A lot of hard work pays off. THC will be my reward. It'd be the worst stoner to hang out with. Billy sit there and he rolls his fat joint and he's hitting it. Oh, yeah, that's the stuff. He loves smoking weed. Listen, I went to college, right? I'm not, which, listen, more power to him. I really don't have any problem with weed. We just cover the worst weed stories possible on this show constantly, because people do go crazy smoking it. It's way too powerful. People are smoking it too young. The stuff that people smoked back in the 90s is 5%. You could sit there, get blazed, watch Pokemon, play some GoldenEye, truly peak civilization. I'm very, very, very aware that I lived in a lucky period of time where I get to enjoy all this cool new stuff like the internet and podcasting and Sabrina Carpenter. But I also got to live during what the Matrix truly predicted was peak humanity, the late 90s. But, someone smoking weed. Smoke it responsibly. Use the right amount and dosage and strength and all this stuff. You're probably not going to cut your neighbor's eyeballs out. It's a possibility, though. It is a possibility. But so anyways, right now you're super high. You're all, why does he keep saying that? You're looking over at the utensil drawer. You're like, I hope there's no spoons in there. But you're conflicted because you just made a big bowl of Captain Crunch. You're like, oh no, do I get a spoon to eat my cereal? Or will I scoop my own eyeballs out with it? Oh, THC. Why have you betrayed me? Anyways, this dude, he loves smoking weed. Smokes all the time. But Billy started to notice this weird occurrence in his house. He would go and he would buy the weed and he would bring it home. And he would smoke it. But then it would always seem, it didn't start this way at first, but over time he started to notice that he was running out of weed quicker than he thought. He'd go, I didn't smoke that much weed. He only has one eyeball. He's like, he's looking at it and everything's all blurry from the blood loss. He goes, I'm pretty sure I had more weed than that. He didn't. He didn't have more weed than he thought, and he didn't smoke more than he thought. He was actually smoking the same amount as always, but he was going through it quicker. He's like, what in the world? Why am I going through my weed so quickly? It was a mystery to him until one day he was sitting there, and he saw, for the first time in his house, a ghost. Now, he doesn't describe the ghost. He doesn't say it's a creepy little ghost girl or an old man kind of hobbling through his living room. He doesn't say it's a black shadow figure standing at the end of the hallway or a pale white hand reaching out from underneath the bed. We have no description of this specter. But whatever it looked like, its intention was clear to Billy. He goes, one day I was sitting there and I saw a ghost walking around my house, and he walked over to where I keep my weed and he stole some of it. Right, Jason, talk about marijuana psychosis. You're like, oh, it can drive you mad. Now let's look at this totally true story of a normal guy who saw a ghost steal his weed. Well, he saw a ghost steal his weed, right? I mean, here's the thing. If the story's true and it's not a troll, and even if it is a troll, I have some stuff that I think is interesting to say about at the end of it. Whatever the case, he's not insane. I mean, he might be, but the weed is missing. More weed is missing than he's using. And he sees this ghost. Obviously, it terrifies him. He's scared to see a ghost walking through your house, and then would infuriate you when you saw it was stealing your weed. So he buys more weed, and he puts it in a different location. But it doesn't help. Because one day he's sitting there, and all of a sudden he sees the ghost appear, and it goes right to the new location of the weed, and it steals a little bit. So Billy starts, whenever he buys weed, he starts to hide it, which he might have actually been doing that before, whether or not he had a roommate or was worried about law enforcement. He'd buy more weed, and he began hiding it, so only he would know where it was at. But sure enough, he would see at some point that ghost reappear and steal some weed. And this kept going on and on. Wait a second, Jason, what if he put it in a drawer? Did the drawer open up and the ghost reach in and steal it? What if you locked it in a safe? Did the ghost fly into the safe? How did it get the weed? Now listen, I don't know the specifics either. But the ghost kept stealing the weed. Until eventually, Billy got so frustrated by this. Right? He's like, dude, you gotta at least throw in some haunted coins or something. I'm burning through weed. I don't buy enough for 2 people. You're smoking all of my stuff. Billy got so frustrated by this, the only thing he could think of, right? He's buying the weed, he's bringing it over, he's hiding it. No matter where he hides it, the ghost will always find it, and the ghost will always take some of it. That he realizes the only option to win the game is to not play. So he just stops smoking. He stops buying weed. After he did that, Billy never saw the ghost again. It's an interesting story. It's one of those stories that when I read, I go, this is one of those stories that could 100% be a joke. It's funny because in the world of the paranormal, sometimes you just don't know. I'm going to reach out to this guy. Probably should have done it ahead of time. Normally, I don't email people ahead of the time before doing the the show, but I'll reach out to him. If he says, oh no, that was just a joke I posted, I'll definitely update you guys. But I wanted to talk about it for another reason. Like this, well, let's talk about this story itself, because it's super fascinating. This is one of those stories that definitely the appearance of the ghost does matter. If it's an old man, you're like, oh, dude, it's like some old stoner dude who wants one last hit. And just like most addicts, he's like, okay, one more hit after that. But what if it was a little girl ghost? That would be very incongruent. It would be quite odd if it was a little girl ghost. She looked like she was 10, and she normally just sits at the foot of your bed and goes, ring around the rosy. But now, now you're sitting there and she's wearing a little sunflower dress. She looks like she's from Little House on the Prairie. And you see her walking down the hallway. You're like, oh my god, this is the scariest thing I've ever seen. Is she going to start crawling on all fours? Or her eyes are going to become pitch black sockets and she's going to rush at me? No, you watch as she reaches in and she's pulling out some weed, and then she's like looking around for some rolling papers, and then she just kind of shrugs her shoulders and disappears. She's just going to eat it. She's going to straight up eat the nug. That would be super bizarre, and even more so if it was some sort of almost inhuman ghost, inhuman energy, like a pitch black, 8-foot tall shadow man. If he's smoking weed, like how would that even interact with the brain chemistry of a non-human entity? What happens if a demon does methamphetamines? What happens if Bigfoot does cocaine? There you go, Hollywood. There's your next big movie. Bigfoot actually more of a biological creature, so you would have an effect. You would go, well, we can assume what would happen if Bigfoot inhaled like 3 kilos of cocaine outside of the instant heart attack. Let's just right past that part. But yeah, what happens if a non-human entity that's able to manipulate physical objects does human drugs? Would it have any effect on them at all? That'd be an interesting question. The other question I had is, let's assume the story's totally true. Let's put on our conspiracy caps and assume the story's totally true. It does raise the question, but what about, there's a few drugs that don't have any physical addictions. The addiction is 100% psychological. You don't suffer any physical consequences by just quitting the drug. We don't really have a physical addiction to marijuana. What happens is you have a psychological addiction to marijuana. Some people say there is no addiction to marijuana, but I'm sure, yes, you can quit whenever you want. We've all heard it, everyone. Say along with us. Psychological addiction to marijuana, because everything is just more vibrant. Everything is more interesting. You're more interesting on marijuana. That's not an endorsement. Don't do drugs, kids. But you know what I'm saying? You would feel that way. You're a deep thinker. You're going to have these intense conversations, these intense moments. You're smoking weed. You don't have a physical dependence on it. You can be mentally dependent on it. The other one is on the other side of the scale, which is methamphetamine. Meth, crank, whatever you want to call it. You don't have a physical addiction if you smoke meth, but you have a psychological dependence on it. The world is moving a mile a minute. You're like the Flash. But you're like, wow, if I do meth, I'm the Flash? I love superheroes. Drug dealers, where's the meth? No, I'm not. You're not actually the Flash or Superman, although you probably will feel like it. All of a sudden, you stop smoking the drug, or however you do it, you're boofing it, whatever the case, and the world slows down. Stops, really. It moves so slowly, and you're no longer a genius, you're no longer bulletproof, but again, you were neither of those things to begin with. You're just an ordinary person, but the meth made you feel like Superman. And I wonder if drugs like that, I wonder if I don't think you would have a addiction to opioids if you died. Actually, firmly don't believe that. We may see ghosts that might have addiction-seeking behaviors, because a ghost is kind of between life and death. It's dead, but it's stuck here on Earth for some purpose. So you might see, and I'm sure there are a lot of stories of, we've covered them before, alcoholic ghosts. I'll put that one in the show notes, where the ghosts military base took over like an old park or something like that, and the ghosts would get drunk and beat people up and then pour alcohol on them. I'll put that episode of the show notes, but anyways, In the afterlife, you wouldn't go and get drunk. You wouldn't need to go and get drunk. You wouldn't be addicted to it. But the meth and weed and even things like magic mushrooms, acid, those things you may still crave in the afterlife because it's a different type of addiction. Again, addiction is not even the right word. Dependence is usually what they'll call it. You just really, really want it. Now, you could say in heaven there are no wants and needs, and that could be true. Fascinating, though. And again, that's the afterlife. As far as a ghost goes, we have stories of ghosts seeking out alcohol. So the idea of a ghost seeking out weed, in and of itself, it's funny, but it's not completely unbelievable. We do see stuff like that in the record, in the paranormal lore. There are questions, again, if you put your weed in a jar in your sock drawer, pressed against the back of it, and you saw a ghost open up the drawer, dig through your socks, pull the jar out, open it up, and pull out some weed, and then put it back, or maybe doesn't even put it back, just throws it on the ground. It's like, you gotta clean that up, bud. I'm out of here. Ghost vanishes. That would be a power level of a ghost that is almost, at that point, you're like, is that ghost smoking meth? How was a ghost that powerful? Ghosts can move things, but it took a lot of finely tuned skills to throw socks out. I guess that's pretty easy. I guess that happened in Amityville. I'm like, throwing socks? Whoa. Call up the Ghostbusters. But here's the thing. That would be pretty intense. And there's all sorts of things, right? The violation of things being stolen from you. The idea, no matter where you hide it, it finds it. So you would think one of two things is happening. I hide it, and then the ghost is rummaging around my house until it finds it and is able to retrieve some of it, or it's watching me constantly. Even when I don't see it, this ghost is watching me, and it watches where I hide the weed. The first option is kind of funny. This ghost going, where in the world did he put this? I checked the freezer, I checked the fridge. Did he put it in the back of the toilet bowl? Would he be that desperate? I'm a ghost. It's not impossible to lift ceramic, but I might drop it. That one's kind of funny. The idea of a ghost just silently standing behind you, watching your every move, you just never see it. And then it sees where you hide the weed and it just gets it when it wants it. That is a terrifying reality of ghosts. I do believe ghosts see us far more than we ever see them. So an interesting little story, but I think there's some cool stuff to talk about it. And again, going to that, we'll wrap it up like this. If when you're in the afterlife, you still want meth, because it would be classified almost as a different drug. Think about those drugs that I mentioned. Methamphetamines, marijuana, acid, and magic mushrooms. What do those all have in common? Hallucinations. Expanding your mind. Feeling like you have finally put both feet down on the earth for the first time and experiencing who you truly are. All of those drugs are very, very, very mind-bending. But the 4 drugs I mentioned that are mentally, you can get a mental dependence to it, but not really a physical dependence to it, operate on such a different level that they may be crossing that boundary between the here and the yet to come, life and death. And if these drugs truly do exist in that spectrum between life and afterlife, then you could reasonably assume that demons and shadow men and maybe even the dead who have passed on, not just ghosts, but spirits in the afterlife, could also use those drugs. Crazy to think about, right? What would happen? That's a movie for you. We already did Cocaine Bigfoot, or Blow Bigfoot, although that might be... You might go, well, I don't know, Jason. I don't know about the title, Blow Bigfoot. No, I'm like, blow like cocaine. I have to be at every movie showing. I have to be at every theater 3 times a day. When people walk up and look at the poster, they go, Blow Bigfoot. I was like, no, let me explain. Blow like cocaine. They're like, oh, okay. I was kind of confused. Not just by the title, but he was covered in white stuff. I go, that's coke. He's covered in cocaine. That's what the white stuff is. So I'm like, okay, I gotta fly over to Miami right now. I have to explain the movie poster over there for a couple times today. Blow Bigfoot. I already gave you Blow Bigfoot. Now we can do Meth Demon. About a demon addicted to meth. Tell me if that's not the most terrifying. You're like, Scariest thing I ever thought of. That'd be a dope movie. Like a legit demon. Like they actually summon a demon. If you look at the casting, it's all Azeroth as himself. No, like a scary demon. And he has, I mean, like basically it would be evil Superman. There's nothing you could do to stop him. The only thing that could stop him would be other demons. Like, you're down in hell and you go, guys, we got a bit of a PR nightmare. I know people don't like demons already. And they turn on Hell TV, and there's just like this dude just like walking through an abandoned city. And they're like, wait, is that New York? And Demon looks at him and goes, it used to be. Well, actually, no. Okay, sure, it's still New York. There's a sign that says, welcome to New York. He's like, yeah, but I mean, everyone's dead. Everyone's dead. He destroyed everybody in the city. And the demon, I don't know. What, this is the first 10 minutes? You're like, where did the story go from there? I don't know either. Meth demon is sitting there and he's like, well, I kind of topped myself already. I don't know what I do now. Well, he's on meth, so he wouldn't even think about stuff. He would be like, oh, you know what would be really cool? If the moon was closer to the earth, so that way waves were bigger, and then I could surf. He doesn't know how to surf. He's never even tried it. But he goes, I like big waves. So he pulls the moon closer to the earth, and there's these huge tsunamis. And it destroys all the surfboard shops. He's like, I didn't think that one through. I probably should have bought a surfboard first. Whatever. Millions of people are drowning. He goes, you know what I'd really love to do is mountain climb. But maybe the mountains are too big. Because I'm kind of lazy. I'm more of a lower body guy. That's why I want to try surfing. What if I pulled the earth slightly out of orbit so I could climb up mountains? Scientists are like, what? That doesn't work. The earth is still the same circumference. The demon kills all the scientists. And then he does that. He moves the earth slightly out of orbit and a bunch of people would get nauseous. I don't know what that would do. It would probably just, the sun gobbles up earth. People are like, my stomach feels a couple feet lower than it used to. Did that demon lower the earth out of the... Humans can make no sense of what he's doing. They're like, what? There's other ways to make giant waves, you moron. Go to a park with a wave machine. Like, use your magic to make a bigger machine. Did he move the earth slightly out of orbit to make the mountains? Well, here's the thing. He's on meth, so he's not really thinking super clearly. The only thing that could stop him would be other demons. And they'd be like, weren't we supposed to take over this place? Wasn't our whole plan to conquer Earth? It's just ruins. Aren't we supposed to rule over these humans? How come the Illuminati hasn't stopped this guy? We got him on speed dial. They're always calling us. They're always asking for something. But when we need their help, they're all dead. That'd be kind of cool. A big budget movie. It's $200 million. Get Roland Emmerich on the phone. About a demon, a meth demon. Or you could do a smaller budget movie, right? You could do yeah, that's what I expected. I expected maybe it would be like $10 million, a bunch of kids in a cabin in the woods, and a demon does some meth, and he's like stalking them, killing them one by one. He's like, tell me how to make big waves. They're like, what? He attacks, there's a bunch of oceanographers out on a camping trip, and he's like, yes, tell me how to make the waves bigger. What are you talking about? I just draw maps of the water. It's the easiest job in the world. I just get a piece of paper and color it blue. And go, look, the Pacific Ocean. And everyone's like, yay! You're the best map maker ever. Meth Demon. Coming soon to a theater near you. Machinist 717679. Let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the world. Famous Carpenter Copter. We are leaving behind this dude's house. Why don't you fly us all the way out to Portugal? On the way out there, I want to do a really, really quick Dead Rabbit Radio Recommends. I want to recommend it. To you guys, but I don't want to give too much away. I went in pretty much blind. I'm going to tell you exactly what I knew about it, and then that's it. Just hope you guys trust me on this. Because I watched it today, and it was absolutely fantastic. It's available on Amazon. It's called Kill Me Again. I believe it just came out this weekend. It's a story about... It's dope, dude. I really enjoyed it. I just found it. It just popped up. It said new rental, and I clicked on it. I was like, oh, that sounds intriguing. It's about a serial killer trapped in a time loop. And no matter what he does or where he goes, the night starts over with him walking into this diner in a bad part of town. Really, the movie, and I don't want to give away any of the plot, but it makes you start to think. First off, I've never seen that premise before. I love time loop movies. It's one of those subgenres that I'm a big fan of. I've seen a ton of them, and I really enjoy most of them. I've never seen this premise before. What happens when a crazy man goes mad? What happens when an insane serial killer loses his mind? Basically, you're watching this movie, and this guy, you can't have any empathy for him, because he is evil. He's stuck in this scenario. It's really good. I really, really recommend it. Dead Rabbit Radio recommends Kill Me Again. A fantastic film. Fantastic film. I've actually watched a lot of good movies recently, so we're going to have a lot of Dead Rabbit Radio recommends coming up as we move into Spooktacular Spooktober. Or, as I like to call it, Ocular October. Jason, do you have more eyeball stuff? Do you have more eyeball stuff? Well, here's the thing. Don't rust your eyeballs yet. I don't do this often, but sometimes I'll edit the first half of the episode, and then I'll record the second half. Usually it's just like a time thing, or it's too hot to record more. I'm recording this part later than I recorded the first part, which actually worked out well. Because as I was listening to that, and I was making all those cut out your own eyeball jokes, I go, oh, let me find the episodes where I've talked about cannabis-induced psychosis before. And I've actually, as far as I can tell, never mentioned that on the podcast proper. I talk about it a lot on my true crime TikToks and my true crime YouTube shorts. But I've never talked about it on the show. You're probably thinking, because I go, oh, I only cover the worst stories. You guys have heard it before. People cutting out their own eyeballs. You're all, no? I've never heard that before. Listen to every episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. Is Jason hallucinating? Is this some lost media? No, neither. I actually never talked about it on the show, so we're going to do a little bit of that. You're like, nope, I'm good. I'll just come back tomorrow. Machinist, we're going to have you back tomorrow to continue your shout out, because we're going to move the Portugal story. I don't have enough time to tell it properly. Anyways, we're going to move that till tomorrow, but I still got some more stuff. You're like, Jason, is it all eyeball related? Is it all eye trauma related? Not all of it, but some of it, because I thought this was really fascinating. So there is a thing called cannabis-induced psychosis. And whenever I bring this up on my true crime TikToks or true crime YouTube shorts, I always get a lot of pushback. People go, what, dude? No way, man. Weed makes you groovy. I noticed there today. I go, oh, that's interesting. Did you use speech to text to write this? They're like, yeah, man, I don't have any eyeballs. I ripped them out, bro, but it had nothing to do with the ganja. People do. It's not super common. Here's the thing. You're still like, huh, what? It's not super common, but it does happen. There's a thing called cannabis-induced psychosis. And what we're seeing, and I'll put articles in the show notes because I've talked about this a lot on my true crime channels, is that, like I mentioned in the beginning, the cannabis today is way too strong. It's way stronger than it used to be. And if you've been smoking since the 90s, you've just been kind of keeping up with the arms race. You've had this very long ramp up. But people who turn 21 today, 21 if they're lucky, how many people waited till they were 21 or even 18 to smoke weed back in the 90s? You're 21, you're legal age in a legal state, and you go and you get a dab pen and it has like 90% concentrated THC in it. Your brain is just not equipped for that level. It just isn't. And there's a lot of problems with young people. Either the THC, they don't know what's happening. They go either the THC, these strong strains, are either accelerating pre-existing schizophrenia in young people, like they already had it, but it was still dormant. Because a lot of times it springs up in your 18 to 25, 18 to 30 is kind of the risk factor. It's bringing it to the forefront right away. This THC, too much cannabis, if it's too strong, it'll either activate the schizophrenia or make it sound like a Dragon Ball Z power. They're like, ah! But not in a fun way. They're not covered in animated glow either it's accelerating the pre-existing schizophrenia or it's giving people schizophrenia. And the doctors don't know. They go, it's possible that this young man would have never developed schizophrenia in his life, but he has it now. The question is did he always have it and this has made it come right out? Or would he have never had it and the THC activated something in his brain that he now has schizophrenia? He now can be diagnosed with having schizophrenia. Cannabis, it does this to not all young people, but to some young people. And, it's funny because when I bring this up, people go, well, that's what they get. They don't, to be fair, they don't say that they're all, that guy deserves a lifelong crippling mental illness. But they'll go, listen, he shouldn't have smoked such a strong dose early on. But that's not the way that it works. Like, there's not a warning label when you go into a dispensary saying, warning, if this is your first year of smoking weed, this might cause you to have permanent brain damage. There's nothing on the box that says that. It's fine. It does do this. This is something that they've been studying for quite a while now. It's just too powerful and people are smoking it too young. And even people who are older, who don't smoke weed, that's where we're seeing a lot of problems as well. There was a 46-year-old man who was going through chemotherapy for Hodgkin's lymphoma. And because he was going through chemo, I don't know if the doctor told him to do this or if it was recommended to him, but basically because he was going through chemo, people were like, yo, dude, you should smoke weed, which he did not have a long history with. You should smoke weed to help with the nausea during chemotherapy. So he did. 46-year-old man, he starts smoking. And after chemo, he continued to smoke. And then one day, he lost his mind. He had a complete psychotic break with no past history of psychosis. But he didn't have a long time of smoking weed. He's smoking weed that is stronger than it was back in the 90s. And I always use the 90s, right? Because I was in college in the 90s. And you would be like, whoa, this is really powerful. And it was like 5% THC. Freaking out, right? Now it's like 90%. You can go into the store. It's not even like hidden. It's not even something that the guy at the dispensary is selling on his own. It's a product. It's in a box. This guy, he's smoking weed because he's on chemo. Didn't smoke before that. He's off chemo. He's continuing to smoke weed. And then one day, he realizes that the Bible is right. Okay, that's fair. That's probably a good conclusion to come to. But listen, there's parts of it that are pretty gory. And you could go, you know what, the Bible is right. Do unto others as they would have do unto you. It wouldn't be in a medical journal if that was the part he focused on. He goes, oh my God, the Bible is right. And I have to pay for my transgresses. And I don't know where it's at. If your eye sins against you, you should pluck it out, is a line. Well, I mean, that's not to be taken so literal. It's basically the flesh will always fail you. You need to overcome the temptations of the flesh. It's not supposed to be. Otherwise, no one would have any hands, because it also says if your hand will cause you to commit sin, cut your hands off. Eventually, we would just be torsos slithering around on the ground with no eyeballs. He says, yeah, you're right. That's actually a good idea. I have been sinning a lot with my eyes. So he begins to try to pull them out of his own head. And I don't know, because this was in a medical journal. They didn't say, it's not like a true crime or a crime article. They didn't go into a lot of details. It's a medical journal, so it starts when the medics get involved. A guy comes into the hospital with severely bleeding eyeballs, and his eyelids are all scratched up. And they're like, what? Okay, well, let's get that optometrist. I know he's probably golfing today or something, but get him down to the emergency room. Ophthalmologist, who's the eyeball guy? I think it's ophthalmologist. The optometrist guy's like, yeah, I just make glasses. I don't know. I don't make bloodproof glasses, although I probably should. They do a drug test on him because obviously people on meth, this actually happens a lot with people on meth. They pull their eyeballs out. Not a lot. I mean, right now you're high on meth. You're like, oh, marijuana, that's too scary. Jason scared me out of that. I'm going to go buy some meth. And you're like, oh, meth, the most calming drug. Now you're afraid you're going to rip your eyeballs out. Most of the time when people come in with drug-induced eyeball injuries, it is meth. This guy was marijuana. They did a drug test. The only drug he had in him was marijuana. He ended up popping his right eyeball. And they did like a CAT scan, and they saw all this blood in his head. And his eyeball, you just looked in, the eyeball's deflated. It looks like a beach ball just sitting on the sand with a hole in it. Apparently, I don't know how they did this, they fixed it. They just put in a little air pump, they're all psst, 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 inflated again. Put a little piece of duct tape on his eyeball. They were able to repair his eye. Now, I don't know if the word repair has a lot of definitions. Imagine just having like an eye socket, and inside it looks like a little crepe, like a little pancake just sitting on the socket. And people are like, what is that? You're like, well, one day I went insane smoking weed, and I popped my own eyeball, and they just left my health insurance. They just were like, oh, you'll be fine with that. Crows are constantly trying to eat it. Apparently, it's very delicious. Birds are constantly trying to fly into my dry eye socket to eat this crusty piece of leftover eyeball. They could repair it so it's not that. They could repair it so it's not an open wound full of delicious food. Vultures were constantly circling overhead. You're driving to work, people are like, what? They're looking up, there's just vultures flying over your car. They could have made it so it didn't look like that. They could have, filled it up like a balloon. Like, you're gonna need to come in every 3 weeks. We're gonna inject saline right in your eyeball. It's like, can't I just wear a patch? Can't you just rip it out? Can't you just finish what I started? They're like, no. Or they could have completely repaired his eyesight, which would be, talk about a miracle of modern science if that's possible. If you were able to pop your eyeball and the doctors are like, oh, dude, I've been training my life for this ever since I was a little kid. And someone popped my favorite balloon. I thought someday I'll save a circular object from being totally useless. I don't know if you can see out of it, is what I'm saying. You can repair something and it looks good, but I don't know if you can see from it. And they actually had to put him in a mental asylum for a while. And he's like, what? I'm not crazy. I'm totally fine. You don't have any spoons? I'm so hungry. They're like, sir, we fed you steak. There's clearly a steak on your table. Huh? What? I eat steak with a spoon. You don't have any spoons. But anyway, so let's go ahead and move on to this last story. We got a few minutes. I wanted to cover all that stuff because I referenced it so much earlier in the episode. And we got machinist flying us around in the Carpenter Copter. We're not going to Portugal. We'll save that for a later episode. Tomorrow's episode, actually. It's a really good story. Machinist will be back as well. For now, Machinist, though, I want you to land us at this seemingly normal house in this seemingly normal neighborhood. And we're about to meet, you're waiting for the sound effect. I was like, do I do another sound effect? Do I do the Carpenter? Let's do it again. It doesn't feel right unless that effect's there. Anyways, Machinist lands us at this ordinary house in an ordinary neighborhood. We're about to meet a young family. We don't have their real names. We'll call the dad Ben, the mom Carrie. When they move into this house, it's just them. When they move into this house, they were told that an old man had died in their home. And they're both kind of like, well, it's a little depressing, right? What room did he die in? All of them, actually. He was horribly dismembered by a THC-fueled freak. By the way, there's a dispensary next door. You're like, oh, great. And they didn't really think about it, but every so often, Ben would have a dream where he would wake up in the middle of the night and there'd be someone standing at the foot of his bed. He wouldn't see it when he woke up. It was just a dream that someone was standing at the foot of his bed. So whatever, right? He's like, dreams are weird. The other day I had a dream I was skateboarding with a T-Rex. I wasn't afraid to go to the skateboard shop that day. Well, eventually they end up having a little baby girl, who we will call Madeline. And now we have mom and dad, and baby makes 3, or whatever that rhyme is. It's not really rhyme, it's just a sentence. It's a fact. Ben and Carrie and Madeline are living in this house, and they're watching her do all the first baby things, like baby first roll over. It's like, oh no, you have her on the table. Put her on a kitchen table. Baby, no! Ah! Rolling. Baby's first crawl. Right? Babies do a bunch of first things. Baby's first blink. Baby probably does that right when it comes out of the womb. It's like, huh? The bright lights. There's a couple first baby things you don't catch. Like baby's first breath. That happens inside the womb. Baby's first... babies blink in the womb, too. What's your obsession with eyeballs? Baby's first... ooga! Eyeballs popping out of its head. When it sees, I was going to say a hot baby, but that sounds wrong. But you know what I mean? Like a baby girl sees a hunky baby. baby with muscles, and she's all, ooga. Eyeballs pop out of her head. You're like, did you get that on film, honey? That was our baby's first ooga. Babies have a bunch of first moments, right? First crawling, first walking. But what's one of the biggest first baby moments? Baby's first words. Will it be mama? Will it be dada? What will be baby's first words? Well, Madeline is growing up in this house. It's a tiny little baby. She's making all of these milestones. And then her first word comes. Eyes. And they're like, what? What? Honey, Madeline, what'd you say? Eyes. Is she voting? Is she voting in a caucus? You should mean eyes. Eyes. And like a baby, a lot of times when they do their first word, I think, I've seen this in movies, I don't know if this is real, but don't they say that word all the time for everything? You're like, baby, do you want milk or orange juice? You're like, that's kind of on you for asking a baby. That's a pretty complicated question. Do you want freshly squeezed OJ straight from the orchard, or would you like ice cool milk straight from an udder? Baby's like, what? I don't understand any of that stuff. Just show me. Don't even give me a choice. I'm a baby. I don't even know what an option is. If you remove milk from my vision, I forget that it completely existed. Just put a liquid in my body, please. I could be wrong on this, but don't, like, if you have a baby and it learns its first words, you go, baby, how are you feeling today? You're like, Jason, you don't ask babies such complicated questions. You're like, baby, what do you think about the geopolitics of Eastern Europe right now? Baby's all, huh? The baby will say the word over and over again is my impression, because it's the only way it knows how to communicate. So if you go, hey, baby, how's your day going? Eyes. Hey, baby. Hey, baby, can you change the channel for me? I taped that remote to your feet. If you do a little dance, it'll change the channel to ESPN. Do the dance, baby. Eyes. Hey, baby, baby. Mama loves you. Eyes. That's all Madeline will say over and over again. Eyes. That's the first word she learns, and she keeps saying it. Eyes. But as she starts to get older, she begins to say eyes and then point. And Ben and Carrie would look and see what she's pointing at. There's nothing there. It's just a blank wall or the corner of the room or the empty couch. Eyes. And they're like, oh, that's weird. I mean, babies are weird. I don't know why Madeline's first word is eyes, but she's saying it all the time. Now she's pointing. At the same time, this is new behavior. Madeline also has started to have a really hard time sleeping and a really hard time eating. So they eventually call in a nutritionist to take a look at her, and they can't really figure it out why she's having these difficulties now. But she begins to learn other words. Mama, dada, orange juice, playtime, dance, doing all this stuff. But she still, every so often, says eyes and points. And this goes on for a few years. She begins to learn other words, but she still has a hard time sleeping, a hard time eating, and they're concerned about her long-term growth. Well, eventually, Ben, Carrie, and Madeline move out of that house, and they get a new house. And at this point, Madeline, can communicate a little more clearly. And about a couple days after they move into the new house, Madeline says, Daddy, there's no eyes in this house. After that, she begins sleeping and eating like a healthy girl for her age. It's an interesting story. Very eyeball-related story. Which I didn't plan on. I didn't plan on covering this. I just go, I need something really short. And it does roll over, no pun intended, from the eyeball segment. That also wasn't planned. Creepy. Creepy story, though. The idea of a child seeing what the parents can't see, that is almost one of those things that is very accepted in paranormal research, in the paranormal lore. Kids have an ability that adults do not have. But the problem is is that barrier of communication that they are not able to express what they're seeing. So there's a helplessness involved there. They can't be the ones to move out. And even if they were older, and even if she was able to say, hey, Mom, Dad, I know we moved into this house, but there's something wrong. I keep seeing eyes. I just see eyes floating in the corner of the room. The parents aren't going to move out based on that. And if the daughter, let's say all of this started when she was 12, she stops eating healthy or eating at all, and she stops having a normal sleep schedule, you could start chalking that up to other things. And you probably would take her to a nutritionist and maybe a eating disorder expert. But at 12, she could go, no, I don't have an eating disorder. It's the phantom eyeballs. It's all the eyeballs everywhere, guys. I've drawn you several pictures of it. There's eyes everywhere. I can't sleep because my room is covered in eyes staring at me. And I've tried pulling them all out. That's why all of our spoons are worn down. I tried pulling them out. I can't. There'd be a little bit more agency there, but if it's a baby and it's their first word is eyes, this is some of the earliest. I mean, like at that point, as the baby, you don't even know how to process it. You would just assume eyes were normal. Like every house has floating eyes in it that haunt you endlessly and make you not want to eat or sleep. But it's interesting too, and we wrap it up like this. I can just go on and on with these stories. I find them so fascinating, but you think about it like this. You go, why would the eyes, all of these eyes, make Madeline not eat or drink? Like, what's the connection there? Or, I'm sorry, eat or sleep. Maybe the eyes wanted another soul. Less attentive parents, that child could have died. Right? Parents being like, just eat that sandwich. It's a baby, it's like 8 months old. I made you 3 ham sandwiches today, and you didn't take a single bite. I had to eat them all myself. I'm going to make you 1 more ham sandwich, and if you don't eat it, you're not eating anything today. Like, bad parenting that kid could have not made it out of that house. And it wasn't a side effect. The not eating or sleeping wasn't a side effect of this paranormal activity happening all around her. It might have been the goal of the paranormal activity. And if that's the case, you wonder if the old man himself was also the victim of such a force. The haunting didn't start with the old man, he was just its latest victim. Machinist will have you back for tomorrow's episode. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal conspiracy and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great one.